Okay, mic check 1 2 1 2. I am the Y2K collector and I'm back coming at you with another video to wrap up this weekend. This was a very mellow weekend. Didn't do any real game shopping. In fact, I actually wanted to make my way out to go ahead and sell some games. I actually have some games that I'm wanting to get rid of, but just never really got around to it, and so that will have to happen on another day. But I figured I'd kind of share some tips, and the tips that I share are coming from someone who's still relatively new to the video game collecting scene. Now, I've always bought video games my whole life. I've always had video games. I grew up with video games, but I never took the collecting piece seriously until I want to say a few years ago. And so I started off with pretty much the consoles that I remembered from my youth growing up as a kid, or even certain consoles that I saw my brothers had. I started there as well. So, that's kind of the starting point for me. And so I really concentrated on some of those older consoles like the PlayStation 1, the Dreamcast, the Sega Saturn. And from the time that I actually started buying those games, I remember when I went back to go get a copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 because I wanted to play one of my childhood friends in it on the Dreamcast. And I remember thinking, man, $40 for this game? Like, geez, like $40. To me, that just seemed just outlandish. And now I think Marvel vs. Capcom is somewhere above $175. So it's very, very crazy. It's a very, very different time for folks that are just starting to get into video game collecting or retro game collecting. It's unfortunate because you'd be getting into it at a time when it's astronomically expensive. And bear in mind, there's probably someone who got Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for maybe $10 on clearance or $15, who knows, right? So there's always someone who got the game for cheaper, which I don't think it is as important as, what do you do if you don't have the game and you want it today, right? Who cares what someone else paid for it? Who cares, when someone else got it? If this is new to you and you're just jumping into this world, you're trying to figure out, man, how do I get that game and how do I get it as cheap as possible? And so, I would just kind of share some tips for those of you who are just starting maybe your collection, because these are some of the things that I've run into. So tip number 1 is, I would say, know what you like, right? Like, you need to know what you like. You need to know the type of games that you like, the genres that you like, and the type of games that you want to collect for. Because when you know that, it makes it so much easier for you to not buy games that are just going to be trash, that you're not going to play, or are just not good games. Knowing exactly what you like, you'll always feel confident in your purchase, because you'll know, like, man, this is a game that I'm really going to enjoy, regardless of if it's a rare game or not, an expensive game or not, an exclusive game or not. Who cares about all that? Are you going to really enjoy playing that game? If no one else wants it, will you want it? And I think that's what's really important. So I think if you know what you want when you just start diving into it, I think that's going to help you save a lot of time and a lot of energy. So that'd be tip number 1. Tip number 2 is have a strategy, right? Unless you just have, just disposable income or disposable money that you can just burn, I would say have a strategy. Maybe use some of the things that you don't play anymore to start building up an initial game fund. You have a ton of YouTubers out there who show you exactly how they purchase games in bulk, how they flip them on eBay and flip them on Mercari. And if you're a game flipper, man, power to you, man. I mean, it's a hustle, and I'll never knock anyone's hustle, right? We all got to eat. But at the end of the day, if that's something, that is a way that you can actually build a collection by going out, pounding the pavement, going to Goodwill's, thrift stores, yard sales, asking your family, friends, whoever, whatever the case may be. That is a way that you can go into it. But regardless of how you do it, have a strategy. And a strategy could be just as simple as setting aside $10 every week, right? Or setting aside $20 every week to be able to go out and spend some money on games. So kind of have a strategy. The third thing is, try not to listen too much to other people's opinion. I love jumping on YouTube, and I love, and that's so funny because I'm giving you my opinion now, right? But the thing is, when you jump on YouTube, there's so many opinions, and I just, for me, I enjoy listening to a multitude of opinions because it allows me to see things from so many angles. However, you really kind of want to take all of that in and just kind of juxtapose it against, how you feel about video games, which really kind of goes back to the first tip, which is just knowing what you like, knowing what you want to play, knowing what the types of games you like. When you're fully convinced of that, it makes it so much easier for you to listen to different opinions and just kind of get different takes on things, and, maybe even get exposed to a game or a genre that you may not have noticed before. So those would be my 3 tips for someone who's new. I think those are all inexpensive. They don't cost anything. They all really start with your brain. It all starts up here. Having a strategy. Blocking out too many voices, and just knowing what you want. Those are all things that you really just start in the mind. And I think once you start there and you kind of have that mindset, it'll make collecting so much more fun and so much more easy. And so without any more jabbering or blabbering, I did want to randomly show you 10 Sega Dreamcast games that I have in my collection that really make it worthwhile. Everyone knows about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Power Stone 2 and Grandia 2 and, Cannon Spike and the Gunbirds. We all know about all those games. But these are 10 games that may not be they may not be spoken about as much, that I think are just awesome. And I'm glad I have them in my collection. So I'm going to go ahead and start it off with this one here. So this is kind of an arena style fighting game, 3D fighting game, Heavy Metal Geomatrix. And this is a very cool, very gory, kind of like arena style fighting game. I think it's pretty cool. I haven't played too much of this game. I played it for a bit, a few summers back, and it's a cool game to have. I mean, I've never seen that anywhere else. I don't think it's on any other system, so that also kind of makes it kind of cool to me. The next up we have here is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now, this is a very peculiar Capcom 2D fighter. You kind of, it's just different. This is not, it doesn't play like a Street Fighter or X-Men versus Street Fighter, and so the controls are very difficult for me to kind of get. So I kind of gave it a try a few times, and I just thought the art was really great on this game. But this is a very unique fighter, one that I'm glad to have in the collection. Got this a while back, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is just a pretty cool game. So check that out if you get the chance. And I'm not gonna lie, some of these are probably a little expensive now, but again, strategy. If there's an expensive game you want to get your hustle on. Go ahead. Once you got your paper up, go ahead and snag it up. All right. Next up, we have Spawn in the Demon's Hand. I've got Spawn games across like a number of systems. Super Nintendo. I have Spawn, I think Armageddon on the PlayStation 2. I have Spawn, I think Eternal on PlayStation 1. So, I had to have this Spawn in the Demon's Hand. Again, this is more action-packed, more gory, just weapons, shooting, blazing. This is different from the other Spawn games. Really good graphics, though. Dreamcast, man, just the graphics are slept on this console. But this is a very fun game. I'd recommend you check it out if you can get your hands on it. For sure, do that. Next up is a very unique game. I don't think I've ever played another game like this, but this is Bangai-O. Bangai-O. This is like you play the game from almost a really drawn out perspective, and you're in like this mech warrior suit, and it almost looks like you're kind of stomping through a city, but it's almost like an arena, and you've got all these missiles and weapons, and you're shooting, and you've got combos, and it's just a very unique game. We got some photos there, and there are a ton of YouTube videos about this game. Definitely check it out. Bang.io. Just type in YouTube, Bang.io Dreamcast, and I'm sure just some gameplay will pop up, and you can kind of check that out. But this is a very unique game. I tried to really get into it, sit down and get into it one week, but it's just a lot. The games like this are like the games that you would just rush to get your homework done back in the day, and then you're sitting down and you're just kind of getting all the moves. This takes time, precision. This is one of those action games. Bang.io, pretty cool. Here's one that I've played a lot, and I still haven't beaten it yet, but this is a ton of fun. I love me a good shmup. I think I just went over some Switch shmups the other day. Yeah, I just put out a video showing over 25 Switch shmups. And unfortunately, this game has not made its way to the Switch yet. I don't know if it ever will, but Mars Matrix is one of the best shmups I've ever played. I'd say this is top 5. This would be up there with the likes of like Radiant Silvergun, Hyper Duel, for me. Right. But this is a very, very fun shmup, bullet hell style, pattern based. This is one of those shmups where if you play it enough times, you'll beat it. You just got to memorize the pattern. So pretty cool shmup there. Since we're talking about shmups, I think I would do a 2-for-1, but I don't want to drop it. So we'll start out with part 1. With the spirit of shmups, here we got Gigawing. So this is an amazing shmup. Don't hear it really get talked about much on the Sega Dreamcast, but it's almost got like these 3D pre-rendered backgrounds. Like it's just like it's almost like 3D, but not. Gigawing is just a unique shmup, very fast pace, but very, very cool, very cool. And then you've got obviously part 2, which is just as cool. The supers, that's I think what makes Gigawing and Gigawing 2 really cool. It's when you unleash your supers, they seem so overwhelmingly powerful. They just take over the whole screen, just like bullet hell for real, or bullet heaven, I guess in this case. But yeah, Gigawing 2 is a cool one. If you can, check it out. All right, and we've got just 3 more that I think are pretty cool. Here's another one. Super Magnetic Neo. This is a pretty cool 3D platforming kind of game. Didn't have a lot of those on the Dreamcast, like a kind of cartoony platformer. And so this is one that I wanted to have just because it's kind of unique to the console in terms of the genre that it is. It's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty standard. Nothing too crazy. Then we have a 3D action game here. This is pretty cool. Dynamite Cop. So this feels a lot like if you ever played Die Hard for the Sega Saturn. Yeah, that's what this feels like. But Dynamite Cop, pretty amazing 3D action game. Pretty fun. I think this is 2-player. Just has that whole Die Hard feel. This is one that's on the Dreamcast. Check it out. And a lot of these I think are just exclusive to the Dreamcast. I don't know if they're available on any other console. I don't think so. All right, and then last but not least, we have a RPG here that we're going to show. And this is Elemental Gimmick Gear, a very good looking sprite based RPG, and then the fighting is actually done in 3D. And I just got this game because it was too beautiful to pass up. I mean, the artwork on this is amazing, especially for the Dreamcast. But this is also a very interesting story as well. Just a story about the gears and just the whole futuristic. It's pretty cool. Check it out. Elemental Gimmick gear. And that does it for the 10 Dreamcast games. Thanks for stopping by on a Sunday evening. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Hope you enjoyed the tips and the Dreamcast games. Let me know what are some Dreamcast must-haves for you. I am the Y2K Collector. Have a good one.